So glad everyone's oh, there we go. Everyone's here. Let's let some people on here. Thank you everyone for joining us. As you are joining us, whether it is here on Zoom or on Facebook, we would love for you to introduce yourself in the chat and let us know, how does AI benefit you in your personal and or professional life? Maybe we'll learn some things from each other. Some new tips and tricks here. Again, welcome everyone. Great to see you. Excellent. Again, whether you are in Zoom or watching us on Facebook, let us know who you are and how you utilize AI for the benefit of your personal and or professional life. Rod says generative AI helps efficiency. Awesome. And Rod's going to give us some tips about how educators are doing that as well. Oh, Russell, I like that. Using shortcuts, using it as a shortcut to learning. That's excellent. On just about everything. Absolutely. Hey, Carmen, that's okay that you're just learning. This is the place to be. Excellent. Great news. Smoothing out the writing. Oh, nice. Stephen, doing a doctoral dissertation on AI in special education. Very cool. We've got some great representation in the room here. People from all sorts of areas of education, helping with writer's block. Excellent. We have principals, we have state agency folks, we've got people that are getting their doctorates, so they're in school right now. We've got all sorts of educators here. So glad you're here. Excellent. Yes, letters of recommendation. Very true, very true. Awesome. So thank you so much again for being here. We are glad to see you, and feel free to continue to use the chat. We'll be monitoring that the whole time. We are recording this, and so we will let you know once it is out. You will get an email, and you'll also get an email of any of the PDF of these slides, as well as any resources that are shared by our speakers. So if you are not aware, we do have California guidance regarding AI in education, so feel free to check that out at bit.ly CDE_AI. And don't worry, if you didn't catch that before I move to the next slide, it will be in the email tomorrow about all of that. Now, what we do is we take that guidance, and that becomes the outline for our webinars, because we want to go deep. We know AI is changing very quickly, and so that is why we bring in some educators and leaders that are doing this work to provide you with more input and information and tips and tricks about what this can look like. All right. Oh, and I'm hearing I'm seeing people share in the chat how both personally and professionally they are using AI. So what our webinar is today, it's about leveraging AI capabilities for educators, for students, and also critiquing its inaccuracies. And so really making sure that we know how to use this tool efficiently and appropriately. So we really believe that it's important that we learn safe and ethical and efficient, effective ways to learn both with AI and learn about AI. And by the way, when I say AI, I'm not just talking ChatGPT. There's lots of different, ChatGPT is just one part of what AI actually is. So we have these skills that we are calling upon our educators and students to build in regards to understanding safe use, data collection, user privacy. We talked a lot about that last week, and I will send the recording in the email that you get tomorrow, so you can check that out if you missed it. And today, like I said, we're talking about those AI capabilities and critiquing their inaccuracies. So I thought I'd just share a little bit of information here. In June of 2023, 47% of our educators believe it's important to teach kids about AI and to understand those tools and see those potentials. And yet, 75% have never used those. So that's why we're here. We're here to support you, to get you going, and to start about that. Back in June, and I have a feeling this has definitely changed, but back in June, 87% of educators had never received any PD about it. Because guess what? It's new. We are here to support you, and we are so excited that you are here to learn, because that shows you are a learner and you are here for your students. So how is AI impacting the present? So I decided to ask AI itself. I went right to the source and I said, hey, ChatGPT, are your responses always accurate? And I have to be honest, I appreciate that it told me that no, it is not always accurate. It's not magic, right? And I asked Bard the same thing. And if some of you are like, Bard, ChatGPT, I don't even know what you're talking about, Catherine. I haven't used that. It's okay, because guess what? Rod's going to show you some things about that. All right. So we're going to start. We've got 3 speakers here today that are going to share some tips and tricks to help you with your efficiency, but also help you critique AI, because it's not magic and it's not perfect, right? So we want to make sure that we're aware of that and that our students are aware of that. So Rod Garcia is a computer science and digital learning program coordinator for Monterey County Office of Education. And so, Rod, would you like to share your screen? Okay, I'm going to go ahead. Awesome. I'm going to stop sharing. And Rod, you can take over.
Right on. Let me just get there. Thank you, Kat. Hello, everyone. As Kat introduced me, I am Rod Garcia out of Monterey County Office of Ed. I see some familiar faces on the call. It's good to see everyone. You may see me in a lot of different circles concerning computer science and AI in general. And I wanted to talk a little bit around some of the particular uses that educators and students can really utilize to fully implement AI into their teaching and learning experience. And in a moment, I'll take you to a resource Padlet. However, I did want to talk around some of the key ways that I'm seeing artificial intelligence manifest itself within our classrooms, and that's in a K-12 space. We're definitely seeing educators use AI to customize learning experiences, to have comprehensive feedback. I'm definitely seeing folks on board to AI in terms of plagiarism checkers and grading. But more specifically, what I'll talk about in a moment is how you could use AI for content creation using some of our big platforms like ChatGPT and Google Bard. And for those of you who are following online, there is a QR code there that you can take a picture of, or scan on your smartphone, and it'll pull up the Padlet. But I will drop the Padlet also into the chat in a moment. And before we get to that Padlet, let me talk. That's the educator side of how educators are using AI. And there's also the other duality of our schools, or how our students are using AI. And there is some transience across the tools they are using, but students generally are using it in a different way than our educators or educational leaders are. Students in so many different ways are using it for writing support and practice assessments, definitely content creation. But what I've really seen the power of AI for students who are deep in a lot of different tools, they're using it for these 3 bullet points here, whether it's tutorials on a certain topic, it's practice assessments, and or research. In a lot of ways, AI has really helped them utilize these spaces. And so what I'll do is drop the Padlet into the chat. Let me see if I could get one of my teammates to do that here. Actually, let me just escape out of here and drop it in. So in the chat is the Padlet. And within this Padlet, you can see 3 different columns that were created that will allow us to see certain specific AI uses or applications that teachers are using, as well as students. But first, let me go into a little bit about ChatGPT and Google Bard. It's so common for us to hear about ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a platform that is out there that was first on the scene in terms of this generative AI and just catching the novelty of everyone. With Google Bard, Google Bard responded to ChatGPT with a platform that acts similar, but there are some distinct differences. And you can click on these resources here to immediately see how they're different. But let me show you a couple prompts on both platforms to let you know what I mean here. So, for instance, on Google Bard, I had a prompt written here, which is write me a practice test for the high school exit exam. Include a multitude of questions that will best prepare me to pass this test on my first try. And you could see here that Google Bard has created a practice test that the students can go into and really best prepare themselves to feel ready for the type of test and format that they'll be interacting with. And you could see the type of test that Google Bard has created. It's showing a different types of questions and whatnot. Now, conversely, if I went to ChatGPT, and again, all of these links are active in that Padlet if you want to get to the platform, I asked the very same prompt, write me a practice test for a high school exit exam, include a multitude of questions that will best prepare me for the test on my first try. And you could see that in a similar fashion, it is providing a test, a practice test for students to interact with that would best prepare them. Now, let's say I got to the end of my practice test and I knew I needed a little more. You could ask this generative AI to, let's say, create a study schedule and a routine for a test date 2 months from now. I am a driving 11th grader with a full school and sports schedule. And you can see that ChatGPT really did increase the efficiency for them by developing a work plan across their whatever they put into the prompting. And the same can be done with Google Bard. Now, there are a few major distinctions between the two. Google Bard is best utilized for research, and it is attached to the internet. So you would get the most relevant information out of Google Bard. ChatGPT, it still is adapting to current prompts that are being put into it, but its information source ended in 2021. So you'll get a different type, you could ask different types of prompts to these two things. For instance, I could ask Bard to summarize books that were written post 2021, where you cannot do that for ChatGPT. Another way that they are distinguished is, let's say, for teacher usage. I know at this time, a lot of teachers are thinking about parent-teacher conferences or creating parent-teacher communication at the moment. And so I write a communication email to a parent requesting conference about their student's progress. And you could see the template that would give you, so that you don't have to sit there and type these out all the time. You can get a template and then really operate off a existing structure so that you can increase your efficiency as an educator or as a policymaker or as educational leaders. You can ask Bard and ChatGPT to create these experiences or create these products for you. And you could continue to change them. For instance, after I got that email, there is use more assertive language and express that you'll be addressing discipline and intervention. So you could continue to prompt this generative AI in a way that'll best fit the type of message that you need. And this is both the capability of both Bard and ChatGPT. And I highly encourage you to go to that Padlet and ensure that you are able to look at, experience both of these two platforms, because they will give you a different set of responses. For instance, I asked the exact same prompts to ChatGPT, write a communication email to a parent, and you could see that it gave me the current structure. And then let's say I'm working with English learner students who need a different set of communication. I could ask ChatGPT or Bard to shorten the email, translate to Japanese, translate to Spanish, translate to any language you need, so that you could build this communication with parents or with folks that you may have a harder time communicating with just because of a language barrier. Using AI is so essential in terms of drafting responses and having these quick translations. It could even be done real time. And I actually know of a few different teachers who are doing parent-teacher conferences at the moment, and they're using AI as their translator because there weren't enough translators to go around. And that would be perfectly plausible for teachers to use. Now, referring back to this Padlet as I finish up here, I do want you to look at the types of AI that aren't these big chatbots, right? So these chatbots, you can ask a myriad of things to these chatbots. However, there is AI, as Kat suggested, that is built specifically for certain tasks within education. And for those of you jumping onto this Padlet, I want you to take a moment to scroll through both the teacher column and students column and intentionally request of yourself that you are going to explore these later on in the evening, or you're going to see what these AI tools can do to you. I really want to suggest for the teachers here that these AI tools could help increase your efficiency. They're out there, and they are tools that can really fundamentally change your teaching experience in a lot of different ways. Now, for the student column here, I do want to point out that these tools that are existent in this column are tools that students are jumping onto and are using within the K through 12 experience right now. So just having an awareness of where your students might be onboarding to AI and some of the ways that they can be using this AI can really help you think about what your class looks like and what type of plan that you want to create. Because as you could see here, just pointing out this first one, Otter AI, Otter AI transforms audio, text, or just conversation into interactive notes, right? And thinking about how some of our students who are really in depth in this AI world are using some of these tools and what sort of implications that means in terms of inequity of access, or in terms of just the experience within the classrooms might mean for your personal experience. Because while I'm not saying that you should recommend all of these applications to your students, but having an awareness that these applications are growing and these tools are growing out there and our students are using them would be in your best interest to fundamentally be able to have the most comprehensive new world, future ready learning experience within your classroom. And keeping up with this Padlet, I'll continue to drop new applications on here as I continue to experiment and vet them. And as some of them become obsolete, I may delete them right off of the column. So with that said, I do want to point out this last column, which is the AI guidance from that Kat just exposed to us. There's the PDF here, as well as the website, where you could sort of see how you might be able to use these applications. And with that said, I will turn it back over to you, Kat.
Thank you so much. That's a great overview for those of you that have never used, and there were some people on the call that have never used ChatGPT or Bard or some of these tools, weren't aware of what students may be using, maybe utilizing. And so I appreciate that, Rod. And for those of you that have used it, these are some great ideas as well. And so I appreciate that. And I think that actually, Joe, our next speaker, is going to give us some information about specifically, like if we took those ideas that Rod had, how can we specifically leverage the most out of AI with the prompts and how we can do that. So, Joe, if you, I want to introduce Joe Marquez. He is the, let's see, Director of Innovation. Is that correct title?
Yeah, it's actually Director of Academic Innovation, which
Thank you. Okay.
if you shorten it, it's Director of AI. So it's pretty good.
That is excellent. I love it. Thank you. So Joe Marquez has been in education for many years, as have all of our speakers here. And so Joe's going to talk a little bit about this leveraging AI, as well as I think hit upon the hallucinations a bit as well. Be interesting for us to know about that. So go ahead and share your screen, Joe, when you're ready.
All right, there we go. So yes, today we're going to be talking about prompt engineering. It's a fun word to say, but it's something that's really transforming industry as we know it. And I loved all of the tips that Rod was sharing and all the different ways that you can prompt these tools to basically do your bidding, right? But prompting is an art, right? To craft an amazing prompt means to produce an amazing output. If you just put in a superficial ask, you're going to get a lot of hallucinations. And when we're talking about hallucinations, that's a term we mean, and they're going to give you false answers. They're going to be making things up. And so in order to limit those, you have to craft a better prompt. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But I want us all just to take a breath and understand the moment that we are living in right now. The world completely changed on November 29th, 2022, when OpenAI released ChatGPT. Now, they weren't the first to invent the large language model. In fact, Google actually presented a paper on it, and it was open source. So that's where the basic toolkit for these tools came from. But OpenAI was the first to release it to the public. And it really took the world by storm. It is the fastest adopted tool in the history of the internet, faster than any app that is out there. More people joined this in a week than any other website, any other application ever, which is crazy. And we also have to understand that this is changing the entire world. We are going to be talking to educators in 20 years who are going to talk to you and say, what do you mean you didn't use the computer to help craft your lessons for you? What do you mean your learning management system didn't create differentiated instruction the moment you asked it to, and it disseminated out to all of your students? They're not going to understand. Just like some of the students today, they don't understand the pain of having to dial up the internet and be put on hold and not be able to access any information, right? That is the way that we're going to be looked at by people who are born into AI. It is a transformative tool that is not a fad. It is a Promethean moment, something that is going to completely change the world. We do everything, not just one thing. And if our onus as educators is to prepare our students for the jobs of tomorrow, we are doing a disservice if we don't start talking about AI today. Now, before I get into it, though, I want you to understand none of these tools were created with the education sector in mind. Okay, that is why student data privacy is a big deal. They weren't created with that in mind. And that's why it's taken a while for there to be actual tools to be utilized in the classroom with students. So while I'm going to talk to you a little bit about prompt engineering, I do want to implore you, do not put any identifiable student information into your prompts. Do not put any documents that are not public from your school district into your prompts, because we don't know if they are actually adding that information into their data set. They might be, they might not be, but be on the safe side. Let's not put any of that personalized, identifiable information into it. And we also have to understand that we hear a lot of people say, this is going to disrupt everything. Well, we have to understand there's a difference between disruption and discovery. Disruption is when something blindsides us, comes out of nowhere, and just makes us change. But we're at a moment where we don't have to be disrupted. We can turn around and look at the unknown and say, I'm going to discover you first. I'm going to find ways to use you first. I'm going to learn about you first. So you are on the journey of discovery. You are not at the brink of disruption. And I want you to understand that. This is a good thing, but it's a transformative thing. And it's going to make us think differently how we approach our application of education and our lessons and everything we do. It's going to take some time, and it's a little bit scary, but it's going to be fun during this discovery journey. So just let's join this journey right now. Now, when I'm talking to teachers and students about this, it's very complicated when you're talking about large language models, right, with deep learning and talking about the neural networking that is based upon the brain structure. It gets very complicated. They're like, I don't understand this. This picture is all you have to understand. This picture is generative AI in a nutshell, because you can see off to the left-hand side, we have good old Superman. He is an alien, by the way, because he comes from the planet Krypton. And this gentleman over here, that is Superman's father. He is dead. He is dead. He was blown up on the planet Krypton. And before he died, and before he put Supes in a space crib and shot him off to Earth, he had a crystal. And in that crystal, he programmed the entire history of Krypton. Every novel, every writing, every music, every movie. I hope they had movies on Krypton. Otherwise, they weren't that advanced of a society, by the way. And all the history of the family of Superman. Everything his dad can pack into that crystal, he put there. That is the data set. That is the data that these companies are putting in to these large language models. And when he shot him off to Earth and he threw that crystal and it created the Fortress of Solitude, Superman was able to talk to his father. But he wasn't really talking to his father. He was talking to a generative AI version of his father, or a so-called digital twin. His father is dead. And that large language model that crystal represents is doing its best to take the prompt from Superman's mouth and generate a response as best as it can based upon the information it was fed from Krypton. That is generative AI. Now, this generative AI would be called Krypton AI, because that's the data set. And that's what Rod was talking about, in that Bard is different than ChatGPT because they're working off different data sets. And then he talks about the other tools that are being created for education, for teachers. Those data sets are more focused and more aligned with data on lesson design. And so it's the same idea, but a different focus. And we can still create a focus in the broader tools like Bard, like ChatGPT, like Claude, by focusing the prompting towards what we're trying to ask. And that's what we're going to learn today. How do we focus our prompts to really harness the power of these things, to limit hallucinations, and to get better results backwards? But if you're trying to explain this to somebody, just show them this picture and explain the story of this, because that is generative AI. And we can do this today. We can do this right now. And that's why it's exciting. If you wanted your students to talk to Benjamin Franklin, you can. Well, let me rephrase that. A role-playing AI acting as Benjamin Franklin. I have to make sure that I say that, because I had a gentleman when I said, you get to talk to Benjamin Franklin. He says, no, you can't. He's dead. That's a false statement. Of course, it's a false statement. Benjamin Franklin is dead. I acknowledge that, okay? But we can prompt it. We can ask these tools to role-play as an expert in Benjamin Franklin and to craft their responses in Old English as if Benjamin Franklin is responding. Yes, we can. And you can do that now with ChatGPT, with Bard. Right? These tools are available for us as educators. Now, Can you put these in the hands of your students? Well, the student data privacy and the age laws right now, the answer is really no. But you can model it in front of the class. You can ask the students to give you the questions and model it for them, because there's a dirty little secret here. While you can't let the students use it in the class at the moment, they are using it at home anyways. So we need to model for them proper use right now, which is the important part here. Now, I first started learning about ChatGPT from this tweet. This tweet came out in December as soon as ChatGPT was released. And this gentleman had this tweet. He says, I spent the weekend playing with ChatGPT and Midjourney and other AI tools. And by the end of the weekend, I had a children's book illustrated and printed and in my hands. And I'm like, what did he just say? What is these gobbledygook of words of chats and GPTs? And what is this? And so I went to this website and I saw the power in it, because if this gentleman can write a story, I can write stories for my daughters. I can make any story that I can imagine appear in minutes. And so I took this idea and I wrote a book. Well, I can't say I wrote a book. I prompted a book. I thought processed a book. I don't know. We haven't created that term yet. But I, with the help of ChatGPT, made a book I've always wanted to hear come to life. And that book was from a scene in Elf. If you love that movie, Elf, the holiday seasons are coming up. You better watch it. And it's where one of the creatives in this movie says, and he's a children's book writer, he goes, what about if we wrote a book about a tribe of asparagus children, but they're ashamed of themselves about the way their pee smells? And I always thought that could be a hilarious book. So I went into ChatGPT and I said, write me a children's book. And in this children's book, it's going to take place on a farm. And on this farm is a new sprouting of vegetables. And these are vegetable children. And they all have fun together. But there's one vegetable child that is ostracized from the group. And it's the asparagus child. And it's because his pee smells funny. He feels bad about himself. He goes on a journey of discovery. And he learns that maybe his weaknesses can be his greatest strengths. He goes back to the farm. And when he gets back to the farm, I want it to be attacked by insects, destroying the farm. And the only thing that protects the farm, the smell of asparagus pea. And he saves the day. And it wrote it with my help. It wrote it about 80% of what I wanted. I went in and added some things to give it a little bit more humanity and more, I think hilarity, because I'm hilarious. And then I renamed the title. And it's right there for you to view. I'll put the link in the chat. It's called Andy Asparagus, You're in Trouble. And I thought it was great. My daughters thought it was great. And that began my journey on what else can these things do? Just like other educators, just like other people, what else can these things do? And I saw a pantheon of prompts and all these ideas. And I would go in and try, and I would get crud out. I'd get bad responses. I'd be like, this isn't worth it. And that's the thing that's happening with these tools, is people are going in with very unprepared prompts, and they get a response back and they're like, I don't know what the big deal is about this thing. That's a horrible response. I'm never using this again. But it's because the prompt is the problem. The prompt is an art form that we have to learn to craft. Just like we learned in elementary school how to craft a sentence, how to craft a paragraph, how to craft an essay, we have to learn how to craft the ask of the prompt. And I saw all these amazing prompts coming through, but I didn't ever see any framework on how to craft these prompts. And I watched all of these webinars of people showcasing all of this, and I took all of these notes, and guess what I did? I threw all of these notes into ChatGPT, and I said, can you please tell me some common themes in all of these notes? And this is what appeared. These 6 things were the most common items talked about in all of these webinars. And I found out that there's a hierarchy to these. Like at the very top, these are the most important things you need to include in a prompt. Down towards the bottom, they're good to have, but not always necessary. And this is what we call at Q, the prompt blueprint for prompt engineering. Now, all it is your task or your ask. What do you want this thing to do? It's as simple as write me a children's book, brainstorm with me, become my buddy, become my cope. It's what are you asking it to do? But the meat of this, right? Like in a sandwich, bread is very important, but what's in the bread is what differentiates it from everything else. And that's the context. That context is the most important thing that you can add to this, because that is what gives the response life. And the more you can add to the context, the better you'll be. And guess what? You have to be knowledgeable about your content to create the context. And that's a beautiful thing that our teachers need to know, is that this is not going to take away from the content you're trying to teach. This is going to amplify the need for them to know the content in order to craft the context to get the most out of these tools. And that's a beautiful thing, because that makes our teaching that much more important with these tools. Another great thing to have is an example. Maybe you're trying to have a lesson plan come out, but it's constantly being put out in a way you don't like it. So you give it an example. This is a past lesson plan that I have written. I love the way that it flows. When you give me a lesson plan from now on, you need to follow that flow. Do you understand? It will respond back, yes, I understand. Please upload your ideas and I'll craft a lesson plan in the exact format you have shown me. You see, we think these tools don't listen to us. They do. They don't really understand what we're asking. They take what we're asking, they put them into patterns, they look for those patterns, they bring those patterns back, and that's what those responses are. But they will listen to us when we ask them to do things. And I love to tell people this. Pretend like you paid somebody $1,000 to write you a lesson plan, and they give it back to you and it's not what you want. Are you going to say, thanks, okay, I'll use it? No, you paid them $1,000. You're going to mark that thing up with red ink and say, make these changes. That's what you do with these tools. The first prompt is your first attempt at prompting. And then there's the follow-up. And then there's the follow-up. And then there's the follow-up until it gives you something that you can then use or modify for best use. There should never be a single prompt response that you're happy with. There should always be follow-ups. That's the way these tools are. Imagine they are consultants you've hired, and you're not going to let them off the hook until they produce something you are happy with. But please always use the word please, because when the AI overlords take us all over, at least they will know you were nice to them along the way. Now, what does this mean here? Well, that means teachers can now create lesson plans that are standards aligned, just like Rod showed us. That means we can now create emails to parents and take away some of the anxiety that we may have. Have you ever tried to email a parent about a student you had to cut from the football team or the wrestling team, or why you had to choose another student to take that weight class and not your student? Like, you can have the best intentions, but it can come off very wrong. With these, you can remove all that. But some of the things I love to do is, we all know students do not all read at the same Lexile level, but there might be an article that is perfect for them and it's not in Newsy LA. So you can ask it to craft that same article in 4 different Lexile levels. Boom, you're there, right? IEPs. What if you already have a great lesson, but you have a student in your classroom who's deaf and hard of hearing, and you want some examples of modifications or accommodations that can be made in that lesson plan? Boom, this will help you out. The way these tools are used is not to complete something completely original, but to take your ideas and help guide you to create something brand new. These are tools to be used as a co-pilot in your process, not autopilot to replace your creativity. And if we make sure that our students understand that, then we're going to be good, because everybody here is human, and every human has a duality inside of them of good and evil, the easy way or the hard way. And if we don't have somebody that helps us understand the good way versus the bad way, the evil way versus the good way, sometimes we can lean towards the evil. We go towards the easy way out. We need to showcase to our students that's not what these tools were meant for. And if we can model that now, before the tools get 100% implemented into all of our technology tools, we're going to be better off. We are setting the boundaries right now with these things. So we can't be scared of them because they will disrupt us if we don't discover. So just like Rod was saying, lesson plans that are standards aligned, new activities for PE teachers. How many times do you have PE teachers play the same games every year because that's the only equipment they have? These things will help you create new games, right? Letters of recommendations, differentiation of reading levels, role play in science fiction or history or literature. There are so many things. And I know my time is coming to an end. I'm so sorry, but I'm passionate about this. But what we need to know is what are the guardrails that we are putting in place? What are the policies and procedures that we are looking at to ensure that our students are using these things properly, effectively, and not using them as a crutch, and not using them in ways that we don't want them, and not accusing them of plagiarism just because a perplexity detector says that it's 75% probable that it was written by an AI. Well, that means it's 25% probable they're just learning the way you want them to. So we can't create that kind of idea or culture or community in our classroom. Even though colleges are saying that there's blanket policies being put into place that these tools are banned unless a professor says it's okay to use them. Now, I tell you, when I first went to Fresno State in the year 2000, I had been using the internet since 1994. And I was told, you will not use the internet to do any research because he was scared of it. I'm not going to let a scared professor dictate the power of technology in the advancement of my education, and we shouldn't let that happen to our higher ed students, let alone our K-12 students. But our teachers have to be comfortable in their use. That is why we have to craft policies and procedures at the district level that gives a little bit of breadth for teachers to create norms in their classrooms. We call these AI abuses and proper uses, right? And so far, the only AI abuse I can discern at the moment that will change, because kids will surprise you, is that kids turning in completed works completely generated by AI, that is an abuse. Kids turning in any work using AI and not citing it. If a kid is using AI, they must acknowledge its use. That is the first step. Acknowledge its use, right? All the other stuff at the moment is proper use to me, but every teacher is going to be the expert on their learning in their classroom. And we have to discover those on their own. And yes, I know APA, right, and MLA, they are the citation masters of the world. Yes, but they are there to say, hey, look, I found this information in this book that somebody else did. I found this information on a website that someone else did. I don't want to be caught for plagiarism, so I'm citing them. AI is not plagiarized. AI is generating something new, but it has to be acknowledged, but not in the same way as citing a book. We need our students to not do this as a must routine, but as a way to brag about how they are mastering their prompting. I like to say we need our students to get excited about AI citing. And that's by being braggadocious about it, by giving us their prompt. What was your entire prompt? What was your reason? What was your tool? What was the original work you fed these machines instead of just asking it to give you something brand new? These are the things that we need to do, and these are the ways that we can have a window into our classroom. And if you still want more guardrails, right, have your students provide you with all their supporting documents while they were researching. Have them turn all those supporting documents into you. If you're using Google, there's an easy little tool called Document Revision History. You can see what they were doing. There's a couple easy little extensions called Draftback or Originality.ai Content Detector, right? And that looks like this. If a student, they give you a graph. If a student is writing this 100%, you'll see a nice, easy slope all the way up. If a student is copying and pasting, you'll see steps just like this. That's another data set. You can say, hey, you didn't cite any AI, but I saw this. Tell me a little bit about it, right? But the last thing I want to say is I had a fantastic teacher that after I gave this session, they said, I have a question. If we do assume a student maybe used AI on this and they're saying they didn't, could I upload their paper to AI and ask it to create me a 10-question quiz only based on that paper? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And give it to the student. And if they wrote it, they should know their answers because it's based only on that paper. Now, I do implore you not to use that as a gotcha tactic, but to be that as part of the revision process. Hey, if the perplexity detector does this and the originality detector shows me this, I'm going to give you this 10-question quiz. Or you can tell me, did you use AI? Right? Guardrails in place, teaching them, bringing AI out of the shadows, learning prompt engineering. These are all skills that are needed now, that we can't wait for them to be added into our tools because they're here, they're being used, and we need to set our guidelines, our boundaries, our platform now. And we can't be scared. We have to be brave and we have to be excited. And that, I think, is a beautiful thing. And I think that's why this Promethean moment is one of the most beautiful Promethean moments we as educators will have witnessed in our career. So thanks, Kat, for having me. I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen and pass it on back.
Thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate that. I appreciate that you talked a lot about the specifics of the prompt engineering for the educators. So we've got some great ideas from Rod, and now we've got some ideas of how to be more specific. And you also started to talk a lot about what does this mean for our what does this mean? Let me go here. Sorry. What does this mean for our students? And so, this is a tricky one because we're in this new world and we're all trying to figure this out, right? AI, just like when the internet came out, and like you, Joe, I used the internet back in the early 90s and then had to figure out how to navigate all of that with professors and such. And so I'd love to hear, we're so excited that Katie McNamara is here today because not only is she a high school teacher librarian at Kern High School District, but she's also the program director for the teacher librarian program at Fresno Pacific University. And so I've asked Katie to talk about, like, what does this all mean for students? Like, what is the library science group of people saying about all this, right? Like, and so I'm so glad that you're here with us, Katie. And did you want to share your own screen, or do you want to just speak through mine? It's up to you.
I'll just speak through this. You can
Okay, perfect.
as we go. Yeah. So
Excellent.
Interesting here. So I'm going to yes and but simultaneously. So yes to everything pretty much it's been said, but at the same time, I think we need to hit pause. This isn't really new. And wrap your head around that. What we were discussing, if you remove AI from it, this is not new. We have been working on prompts forever. We have been dealing with kids cheating forever. All of these things we've been having to deal with. So if you're wait, we didn't do prompt engineering before, really? I know some of you in here, you've been doing this back in the day. Remember Raft? Yes. So Raft was the rule, audience, format, topic. That's prompt engineering, but we were doing it all on our own. And then now, those of you guys that are doing AP stuff, we've got this Space Cat acronym. All that stuff is working with your prompt engineering. So, and we still want people to go back and always revise their work for their greater purpose. Yes. All of that still going on. And just like before, when people were cheating, they could find a way to not get caught. And we always had ways to figure it out. Not new. So I just want to throw that out there in case those are some worries, we got this. But what we forgot along the way, which is why all of these worries get me super geeky excited, is because our struggles that are happening right now are because somewhere we forgot the importance of media literacy. We have laws about it. We have standards about it. They are crosswalked in multiple California standards, but they're not making it into the classroom. So if we can strengthen those media literacy skills, all of this stuff is bam taken care of. So I want to start too with this first one about bias and acknowledging that bias is everywhere. It just exists. So part of that conversation is bias is not automatically a negative thing. Everyone has bias about something. Maybe it's geography, politics, religion, your thinking, your upbringing. I grew up in a small town. I definitely had opinions, and then getting to a big city, what? Yeah, I graduated talking in my class, but there were only 48 kids in my class, but we won't share that other part. But there's bias everywhere, everything. So then we get on the internet and we access something on the internet and we're surprised, shocked that there's bias, that oh, we went on this internet thing and found something that wasn't 100% accurate. That's all media literacy. Like, yes, we're going to go backwards here a little bit and like remember these basics, these foundations of what's going on. Okay. So, and then I know like there's two different thoughts about this. Do you cite the Chat GPT, the Claude, the Pi? Oh, I just discovered Pi. The Math Pi, pi.ai. I'm liking that one. That might be my second favorite. But I want to go back to honoring to the human. So that means acknowledging that AI isn't really a source. It's like, wait a minute, but AI is creating this thing. Okay, but how are they creating that thing? How are they giving you that output? Because they are scavenging the internet. Like what we would do, or like exceptions, like the story that Joe was sharing, that wasn't stolen from a place. It put some things together. So maybe that's an exception. But if you're doing some research and it's giving you good data that you can use and information, that information is coming from a human. So we need to do our due diligence and go find that source and quote and value the human that gave it. So similarly, like if you're getting help on something, you go to after school tutoring, you go to a writing lab, value that human. I don't want us to lose the importance of the human aspect as we're developing these things. So if we think about this, like AI can totally help you as being that collaborator and all of those things and getting those ideas faster, but that's what it is, like getting it quicker. So if you're doing something where your AI is providing 80% of the content, what are you doing? And then if it's accepted in a classroom, what is that teacher doing? And I get that's a difficult conversation, but that's where we're at right now is what are we really asking? And are we enjoying the product that we're seeing? Like I think about that too when I'm grading something. Not only do I want my students to have joy through their creation, through their development, through their personalization, but I want joy too when I'm reflecting and looking at what they created. So a great question there, Shannon. Can you ask AI what source it's using? Some of them will give you sources, most of them can't. And they still want you to feel warm and fuzzy. So sometimes they'll try to lie just like, well, I don't know, maybe no one else deals with this. Like my child, I kind of lied to like make me feel better in the moment. But yeah, you can't trust it. So I think it's coming up later here. Oh no, it's this one. So yeah, this is the perfect one. If you're on a computer, I don't care how old the child is. If you're putting them on a computer, they're ready for lateral reading. If they're not, then like there's no need for a computer involved. You might be like, well, wait a minute, I just gave my darling an iPad and then, oh, well, yeah, then they can click on something else and dig into finding that information, make it like a game. So that lateral reading is getting to that source. So you're not going to trust something carte blanche, like especially as the seasons change here, the more shopping ads pop up because they're like listening. They know what you want. They know what your kids want. And those ads pop up and that deal looks so good and it might be too good to be true. So what do? Okay, who is this company basically? Who's the people behind it? So that's another tab, doing that investigation. And then another tab and another tab to find out if I buy that thing, it's not a great deal if it never ever gets here. So same thing here. I might be like, oh my gosh, California Department of Ed, who do they think they are? Well, find out if this recording here, the session is worthy or not. I think Catherine, what? Who does she think she is? New tab, go ahead and Google. New tab, Rod, new tab, Joe, new tab, Katie. Like, what in the world should I listen to any of them or do anything they're saying? Have they even ever been in a classroom? Well, go find out. Like that's the power of lateral reading. You want to know your source and have the ability to be able to say, yes, this is valid and it's a good reason to use this source. And that's what we want all the time. We don't just want our students to like have this collection of resources. Like, why'd you use it? What was the point with it? And I love AI K-12 always comes back to that. They've got 5 pillars and most of the links that have been shared in here about the California Department of Ed AI sources and ISD AI sources, it's using this as a foundation too. But the center of that comes back to social good. So Joe did a great job talking about too, that like any tech can be used for evil, but we have this responsibility to leverage it for good, and really having that responsibility, but that responsibility and that ownership and the teaching of the how is something we do prior to bringing AI in, and then we do it simultaneously. How leverage this new functionality for that positive social impact, and thinking too that social impact can be global. And sometimes we think, oh my goodness, I have littles and we can't do anything big. Well, that social impact can be local too. It can be their school site. It can be just within themselves. So thinking about that ultimate goal is always using that tech for good, always that social impact. How are we leveraging and helping to empower our students to do that? And AI is just a pillar that can help facilitate that, but is not that end all be all. And I know like we wanted some time for questions, but
No problem. No,
Mercy will save the world. That's
what I love is all of our speakers have been answering questions as they've been coming in the chat, and so that's been excellent. And so so it's totally fine that we're almost at time. You guys have been awesome and responsive, and I appreciate that. And I really love that we had these diverse perspectives. Right? We had librarian, we had Joe, who does a whole bunch with ed tech and works with all sorts of districts, and then we have Rod from a county office, and so we had all these diverse perspectives, and I really appreciate that. And the parent perspective, Joe, was awesome as well. Rod, I know, has been working a lot with administrators too, and having them learn how to leverage these tools for their own work too. So great question, asking when the next AI event is. I'm going to go over that next. And yes, the presentation will be available to rewatch. So the questions you are asking are what I am getting ready to answer for you. So these are our next steps to support you. So everyone that registers is going to be sent an email with a link to the CDE AI resources, that guidance that I referenced, a PDF of this presentation, any resources that were mentioned by our presenters, by our speakers, as well as a feedback form to let us know what it is that you are wanting to learn more about, what worked for you, what you would like improved. And once it is released, a recording link will be shared as well. And I wanted to let you know that the next sessions, which we, our speakers talked to this, the bias, the social impacts that are in AI, responding to algorithmic bias, what can we do, is something that we're definitely going to be going over in November. These links will be in the email. And also in December, we're going to look under the hood of AI, because guess what? It's not magic. It's all mathematics and logic and prediction. So we're going to learn a little bit more about that as well. And so thank you for being here. I do want to let you know, and I'll have all this in the email as well, but feel free to connect with me, to connect with CDE. I wanted to also point out that we have, and I'm trying to remember which date it is, but my colleague Jeff Bello is on from California Department of Education, and we have been having conversations about AI with Joe from Q. We've been having a Q CDE collaboration. Joe, can you remind me the dates that we do that? It's once a month.
Yes, we are doing that every second Tuesday of the month. Every second Tuesday of the month.
So it's a collaborative conversation where you can come and ask questions, and we're going to be just talking about all this stuff. So feel free to join us. It'll be on the Q socials. And thank you for joining us. And I really appreciate everyone being here. And the fact that you're here means that you care about kids and you care about your learning. So thanks so much, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody.